to 10. Welcome to the artist sessions. I hope you had a chance to cheer, bang, and make lots of noise to celebrate all the frontline workers this evening. I'm Janice Cotter, Gallery Manager at Pomo Arts. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to our supporters for always being so positive and so patient as we figure out our new normal. When I hear people saying socially distanced or socially isolated, it seems so negative. I prefer to think that although we may be physically distanced, we can choose to be socially connected. So I'm happy that you chose to be with us. Our artist tonight, Jeff Wilson, is going to have us thinking about the future and looking at artist residencies. I'll tell you a little bit about him, but you can find out more about Jeff from his digital gallery on the Artist Sessions page on our website. Plus, he has a profile page on our new artist directory. The directory is available to Pomo Arts members or exhibiting artists. I think it stopped recording. I'm gonna have to. Oh, there we go. I think we're good now. Jeff, I think we're back now. It stopped recording for a second. Okay. I'll tell you a bit about Jeff, but you can find out more from his digital gallery on the Artist Sessions page. Plus, he has a profile on our artist directory. Someone just messaged me. Several years ago, when Jeff Wilson transitioned from geology to art, he brought with him a dedication to make painting a career, along with the motivation to make his own luck. He's had successes in many fronts, partly due to his willingness to step out of his comfort zone and just submit an application. This tenacity has given Jeff some remarkable artist residencies in Canada and abroad. Jeff, I'm so glad that you could be here tonight. I'm sorry for that we've started out with so many technical issues. And how are you?
Oh, fine, Janice. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be invited. It's a topic which gets a lot of interest. People love the idea of going away for a vacation, kind of an art vacation, and so it's a great topic to discuss.
Well, that's kind of nice. It's great during this time when we all seem to be living so much day to day to maybe have something positive to think about in the future. And one of the reasons that I was so interested in having artist residencies as a topic right now is that I've been hearing about so many places that have applications open or are going to be having them open, even though everything else is closed. So it seemed like a good time to be planning for the future and thinking about these things.
Yeah, that's certainly true, Janice. Most of the art residencies that I was involved with, they book 6 months to a year to sometimes 2 years in advance. So although we're in lockdown just now, if you are thinking about doing it, you have to be thinking that far ahead.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us a bit about the residencies that you've been in and residencies in general?
Sure thing. Shall I share the screen just now?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay. So you can see me okay? Oh,
yeah.
So I was just going to give you a wee talk about art residencies. some of the characteristics, some illustrated examples, and some follow-up, mainly about what it's like to be rather than the minutiae of it. Let's see what it does here. Okay. So I often get the question, what exactly is an art residence? Well, it's kind of an organized opportunity designed for artists and other creatives, and that's very specific. It's not a sort of a general holiday or an Airbnb, but it's designed specifically for artists and other creatives to explore and expand their artistic practice. Generally, it's an unusual environment. It might be a city that you've never been to. It might be a remote rural area or complete wilderness, and it covers a whole bunch of different scenarios. Now, that'll be illustrated by these examples. The trouble is you get a lot of sort of fake art residencies that are just basically an Airbnb, but purport to be an art residence. So you get some real ones, some fake ones, but in general, they exhibit typical characteristics that are common to all of them. In general, they're all organized in some way, okay? It's not a long-term thing like a rental. It's normally a specific chunk of time. It might be a few days, it might be a month, it might be 6 months, but it's always a temporary precise block of time. And it's normally associated with an arts-related host. That might be a local arts council, it might be an organization like a company, it might be an international body that deals specifically with art residencies, or it might be a government agency such as Parks Canada. Now, although you generally have to have some skin in the game, and most of the time it's you paying most of it, there's normally some kind of subsidy built in there, and that's key to identifying a fake one versus a real one. Although you don't get paid typically, there will be some kind of, you'll be able to read between the lines that it's cheaper for you to go and do it rather than getting a vacation. And sometimes you'll get a defined outcome that may be, it might be giving a piece to the organization, it may be giving a talk, it might be giving an exhibit, it might be some kind of follow-up. And the three examples I'm going to talk about this evening are the booth in Shetland, Art in the Park in BC, and then the Stegner House in Saskatchewan. Did you have any questions, Janice, before we start?
Not at this point. I think we can probably just go right into it.
Okay. So the first one I'd like to talk about is the booth in Shetland. It's run by the Wasps Arts Studios and the Shetland Arts Council. I did that in 2014. And so it's in Scalloway in Shetland. I'll illustrate that for those of you who don't know where Shetland is. It's organised jointly by the Shetland Arts Council. They own the venue, and then the Wasps Artist Studios, they arrange for the artists to come. In that situation, you get accommodation and a studio, but there's no food and transportation. So you have to get there yourself, and then you have to feed yourself. But it is heated and everything else is there. It is entirely self-directed, so there's no defined outcome. Okay, so you basically, you take out what you want and make your own outcome. So where is it? Well, as you can see, you've got Scotland and Norway, and in the red box, you've got an archipelago of islands, the Shetland Islands. They were part of Norway until the 1700s, I believe, and then have been part of the UK since then. Scalloway is a town of about 1,000 people on the west side of the mainland. This is a view of downtown Scalloway. You've got a castle in the middle. You've got a sort of an archipelago of islands around it. It's about 60 degrees north. You've got a medieval castle surrounded by a Victorian downtown, and then sort of newer buildings around that. The booth itself is this little purple building with the pink shutters on the water. It's a two-story building. Behind it, you've got a row of Victorian row houses, and then you've got a medieval castle behind that. It's a very spectacular location, right on the water, very compact and bijou. The weather is pretty wild, but on a sunny day between weather, it's a real an idyllic location. This is the view from the other side, looking out over the water, and that's the booth. Now, while you're there, you've got a studio, which is down below. It's unheated, so I didn't actually use it very much. But in the summer, I'm sure it'd be just the thing. I spent most of my time in the living area, which doubles as a studio when it's pretty cold. So when I was there on a sunny day, I'd go out and take photographs of the surrounding area. I'd get a local hire car and drive around and take a lot of photographs. I took about 2,500 photographs during the 2 weeks. And in the windy and rainy days, I would be in the studio working on acrylic studies and paintings. You can see my sort of jerry-built easel on the right-hand side there, and then some examples that I was working on. And these were on unstretched canvas. And so any questions about that, Janice?
I don't see any questions posted just yet about that. But Jeff, okay. Now I recall you, can I just ask you a question about it myself though? About that one?
Certainly. Yeah.
I remember you saying that it didn't have any specific expectations, but I remember you talking about an artist talk that you gave while you were there.
Yeah, I gave a talk, well, I actually gave a talk to the WASP's Artist Studios in Edinburgh afterwards, and that was voluntary, which is just as well because the crowd encompassed 3 people, one of whom was my dad. So it was a very modest affair, but it was kind of a PowerPoint. While I was there, the studio is open to locals, and so I had groups of people coming by and so forth. I had an interview with the local Shetland Times and interacted with the locals a fair amount. So although you're on your own while you're there, there are opportunities for interaction with a lot of the local people.
Gillian McMillan just messaged to see if you had been welcomed by the community in Shetland, but you were just mentioning that you had people coming by.
I had some interaction. Yeah, I made a few friends while I was over there. So there was some local, I tapped into the local arts community, and they took me out to the local village halls for the quiz nights. They liked somebody from away who had a bit of a different take on the quiz nights. So I got to know a few people while I was there, and you know, the local bar and the local takeout. You know, it's a small village, and they keep fairly close to themselves. I wasn't lonely.
Okay. Did you want to go on with Art in the Park now?
Sure. So Art in the Park's a different animal. I did that in 2016, and it's organised by Parks Canada jointly with the Revelstoke Visual Arts Centre. And it takes part, it occurs once a year, every year, in Glacier National Park, which is Rogers Pass, basically, between Revelstoke and Golden. And yeah, Glacier National Park, jointly organised by Parks Canada. They've got a big office in downtown Revelstoke. And then the Revelstoke Visual Arts Society, which is a not-for-profit. They run the Visual Arts Centre there. Now, unlike the last one in Shetland, this is a group effort. So there are 12 artists staying for 4 nights in the A.O. Wheeler Hut, the Ella Silhouette campground in Glacier National Park. Now, in that situation, you get accommodation in the A.O. Wheeler Hut, and you get food provided for you by Parks Canada. But there's no studio per se, and then you have to get to and from downtown Revelstoke from wherever you are. And then the main takeaway from that is that you're normally required to contribute up to three pieces of work for a group show. Now, the year I did it, 2016, it was the coming up for the 150, kind of the 150. So we all contributed pieces to a touring group show, which visited the Portmoody Arts Centre, I believe, in 2017. Now, where is the Glacier National Park? Well, you can see the bottom left there, very, very small lettering, Revelstoke. And then you've got Mount Revelstoke National Park, and then which is separated slightly from the Glacier National Park itself. We are staying fairly close to the road in Rogers Pass, but you have the opportunity to hike up to the glaciers there. Now, it's a fairly rugged landscape, but you do have open access as part of the group there, and it is one of these truly spectacular real BC landscapes. This is the accommodation run by the Alpine Club of Canada. There is no water, no running water. There is a creek behind, and there's no electricity, but there is propane gas in tanks. So you do have gas for cooking and light. Now you'll see the window up door. It's that's not a crawl space, but it's a the sleeping accommodation, and that's common. That's a common sleeping accommodation. So you're all sleeping together in sleeping bags, and then you're living downstairs. And this is the downstairs. It's one of these quintessentially Canadian environments, all wood, log cabin, and you know, where else would you get an opportunity like that? Now, as I said, you're part of a group of other artists. There were 12 of us, 11 women and myself. Now, that proved initially a challenge, but in the event, it worked out fine. You know, we worked out how to live with each other, and it worked out very well. Now, there were groups of people who went up hiking, and then there was the less keen group like myself. I spent most of my time in the car, driving around, taking photographs, meeting up with staff members from Parks Canada, and taking portraits of those people. Any questions about that, Janice?
Actually, not that one. There were a couple more from the booth, but maybe we'll get to those at the end then.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should just tell everybody that we'll have good time for question and answer at the end. We're just dealing with certain ones. Okay.
Yeah.
Shall I go ahead with the Stegner House one, Janice?
I think that, that would be great. Yes, please.
Okay. The Stegner House it's basically Wallace Stegner's childhood home. Okay, and this image on the top right-hand side here is a sketch, not by me, of the house. It's the house that was built by Wallace Stegner's father that he grew up in. And who's Wallace Stegner? Wallace Stegner is the Pulitzer Prize-winning author who won in the 60s for his book Willow. For his book Angle of Repose, which and then he went on to set up the creative writing program at Stanford University. But he grew up in East End, Saskatchewan, a village in the far southwest of Saskatchewan. It's owned and operated by the East End Arts Council, and it is primarily a writer's residence, but it is open to visual and performing artists as well. Now, you get the whole house to yourself. There are 2 or maybe 3 bedrooms, so you can invite friends and family with you. And it does have an office studio, and that office studio is the bedroom of Wallace Stegner when he was growing up there. But you have to get yourself to East End, Saskatchewan and around, because there's little to no public transport, and food. You need to get the food. There are a couple of restaurants in town, and one grocery store. And the requirement in that one is to give a talk at the local village hall. And again, I did a PowerPoint for that. But otherwise, it's self-directed. So again, while I was there, on sunny days, I would get in the car because I had a 4x4 and drove around and took photographs in an organized trips to local communities and visiting local people. And then in days when it was snow and fog, I would stay in working on online aspects and studies of small pieces to get my eye in on the color scheme that was visible. So what does East End look like? Well, that's downtown East End, featuring Hidden Valley Foods. And Hidden Valley Foods is run by a Korean couple. You may have heard of the wife. She was featured on the Sunday edition. She is a classically trained Korean opera singer. So there's a variety of people in East End, all the way from writers to farmers. I was there in November, so it was -25. Very sunny, but very cold. This is the Wallace Stegner house, a fabulous little house, nice and warm despite the cold conditions. Of course, the houses are designed for that, and it really was a great experience. I was there for 2 weeks in November. I arrived and it was +5. A front came through and it went down to -28 the next day. You know. And it was a great opportunity to go there because it is what we call West, the Canadian West, that area has witnessed the whole of the Canadian Western history in a very small area. The interior has been renovated sensitively with the furniture of the original period, so you really feel like you're walking back in time. Okay, any questions about that one, Janice?
There were a couple about the length of the residency, but you actually did respond to that before you finished.
Yeah, you get anything from a month to 2 weeks, and it just depends on the luck of the draw. It's just at the discretion of the East End Arts Council.
Okay. So you were there 2 weeks.
I was there 2 weeks, and for the way that I work, that was enough.
And in November, that was probably enough.
Well, I mean, you could, as I say, when you're in you're warm in the house and you're warm in the truck. But at the end of the 2 weeks, I'd gotten enough reference images and I'd done enough studies that I was confident that I had at least a handle on the colour scheme and the subject matter that I wanted to address.
Another question has come in as to Pauline Doyle wanted to know if they only have these residencies at Stegner House in the winter.
Oh no, it's year round. Sorry,
it is year round.
It is year round. Both the booth in Shetland and the Stegner House are year round. You apply in both cases you take your best shot and you can ask for a particular time, but the actual allocation for the season is at the discretion of the organising committee.
Okay, great. Okay, now do you want questions about the earlier ones now, or do you want to wait till you've done the broader outcomes and then go back to individual questions?
We can wait until that.
Okay.
So
okay, great.
So you know, the big question is, why bother? I mean, what's the big deal about an art residency? You know, well, it's one of these things. When you look at a resume of an established artist, it's just one of these things that established artists do, okay, that separates established artists from everybody else. It demonstrates your commitment to practice, okay? You go out there and you do it and you produce work out of that. If you are struggling with ideas for new subjects and so forth, it does give you the opportunity to get exposure to new subjects, new environments, new color palettes, new cultures. On all of these can give you inspiration for new work. And what you can do out of the back of it, which is the main deliverable in my case, is a themed collection of paintings or sculpture or writing or dance or whatever that is. And it can give you a coherent themed body of work, whether it's about aspects of life in Shetland, the continuity of the rural landscape or changes in the rural landscape in Saskatchewan, whether it's the working life of the Parks Canada staff that allow us to enjoy this great legacy we have of the Cup Park system in Canada. It gives you a block of work which is coherent and themed, and that, of course, it gives you an extra dimension when you're applying to public art galleries, because they are looking for something, not just recent work, they're looking for something that they can sell to their audience. And if you can sell a theme like that to them, and it's an attractive one, then it's something that is more likely to bring in the public to their gallery. Besides which, it's a great story. You know, people love to hear about your time in deep southwest Saskatchewan, or, on the edge of a cliff in Shetland, or in the forest in Glacier National Park, dodging grizzlies, And, when you have all this, it just adds an extra bit to your profile. So in my case, I went with the themed exhibitions. So in the case of the Shetland one, I produced an exhibition called 60 Degrees North Shetland. Shetland is 60 degrees north of the equator, and it was a combination of some of the local shipping, the local wildlife and horticulture, some of the local vernacular architecture, and that kind of thing. Traditional industries, new industries, various aspects of that. And it toured showing at the Act Gallery in Maple Ridge, and went on to Gibson's Art Gallery, where you have here. In the case of Art in the Park, I concentrated on depicting the working lives and portraits of the Parks Canada staff, and they were very kind to allow me to photograph them. So it was concentrated on the wardens who enforce the law in the park, where they're the equivalent of the RCMP, but within the park boundaries. That's the right-hand one. And then the trail crews who cut the trails through the park, unsung heroes, that work year-round to make it possible for the rest of us. And this one was the one Canada 150 touring show that showed in Alberta, in Peachland, in Port Moody Art Centre, and in Kelowna. And then in the case of Saskatchewan, I put together an exhibition featuring various aspects of life in Saskatchewan, landscape, the sort of winter landscape, aspects of the traditional vernacular architecture of the ranches and the villages, a lot of the farm machinery and other aspects, some portraiture work, and then some of the local animals like this sorrel quarter horse behind me, bulls, and so forth. Okay, and that toured various places. Last year it was in Balmer Brewing in East Vancouver, together with the Revelstoke Visual Arts Centre, which also showed the art in the park exhibit, and then at the Station House Gallery in Williams Lake. Now it's sitting in my studio, and will show later this year at the old schoolhouse in Qualicum Beach in November. So, that's something that you can do. That's the end of the formal presentation. Janice, should I'll stop the share now. People can see where I am, based out of Portside Studios, but back to the usual.
Okay, well, good to have you back again here.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, and I know you've told me before, but how many pieces did you have from the booth? How many paintings did you produce for that body, and from the Stegner house from Wolf Willow for that body of work?
So while I was on site, I took 2,500 photographs, and I did 7 paintings, medium size, kind of like this. Okay, and that was during the course of 3 weeks. And then for my first exhibition in Maple Ridge at the ACT Gallery, I did 17 exhibition size pieces, ranging from 24 by 24 inches up to 6 feet by 4 feet. In the case of the Stegner house, one, I did I think 15 pieces, ranging from 10 inch by 10 inch. Sorry, no, wait a minute. I did 20 pieces, ranging from 10 inch to 10 inch. Most of them were 30 by 40 or 36 by 36, and I had one 2 feet by 6, one 4 by 4. So most of them are this kind of size, and then I normally have 1 or 2 big showstopper sort of anchor pieces that catch the eye.
Okay, now I'm going to go back to a couple of questions from the booth that were posted just a bit because of the delay in the video. They were posted a bit after we finished that section. So Sandra Ewan McKay has asked, where do you buy supplies when you're over there, or are you having to take them with you? This was at the booth.
At the booth, yes. So I had a good chat with a lady called Sandra Fortier, Cheryl Fortier, that I'd exhibited with Britannia, and asked her what I should take with me, because she had residencies abroad, and what she told me was take all your brushes, all your paints, and all your canvases. Do not work on the assumption that you can pick anything up while you're there. So I did that. Now, if you're traveling on a plane, you have to take smaller tubes of paint, put them in a sealed box, and then put them in your checked baggage. In the case of the canvas, I took unstretched primed canvas in a map tube over my shoulder, okay? And I just took that onto the plane with me. It looked a bit ominous. People thought it was maybe a gun or something, but it worked out fine. However, I realized that once I was there, I ran out of titanium white while I was there. But in Shetland, there was an art supply store with a modest amount available, because there are quite a lot of artists there. However, it is expensive. In the case of Saskatchewan, there were no art supply places of any kind within a couple of hours drive. I guess the nearest place would be in Swift Current. Again, I did the same thing, all the paints and the brushes and all the rest of it in a sealed box, plastic box, and I took a series of small stretched canvases in my checked luggage, and that worked out fine.
Okay. Sharon Kewen asked, and I think this was from the booth, what does WASPs stand for? And I don't remember seeing that, but I was also looking at.
Sure. WASPs, it might be an acronym, but I'm not sure what that is. It's just the name that they have. They just call it Wasps Artist Studios, and it's an arts organisation which is based in the central belt of Scotland, and they have large studio spaces for artists in Edinburgh and Glasgow. But they also manage a number of artist residencies across Scotland, and the booth is one of the ones that they operate on behalf of local arts organisations. In this case, it's the Shetland Arts Council, but the Wasps, they have quite a large staff, so they're able to organise the logistics of vetting applications and judging and so forth. Whereas the Shetland Arts Council is they're well provided for. They own the booth, but they don't have necessarily the bandwidth to run through all the applications.
Okay. Now, Gillian McMillan had asked about art in the park, whether you painted in the park or later. Did you paint?
I did.
Sorry.
Yeah. Most of the people who were there brought along watercolor and painted plein air. A lot of people did plein air, sketching or painting. In my case, I brought along a sketchbook, but I spent most of my time photographing, walking and photographing. And then once I was back in the studio, we had not a tight deadline, but we had like a 2-month deadline to produce 3 pieces that were to be included. So I came right back and started work on those right away.
And that was an exhibition for the Canada 150, a touring one.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And so we did it was like the first weekend in August, I think we were there. And we got back, it's a very short thing. And part of what's good about the art in the garden, the art in the park, it's quite a short one. So people who have family commitments, for example, they're able to attend. Yeah, we had a 2-month window to produce 3 pieces to be included in this group show. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Helen Ramsey was able to look up what it meant, what WASP meant, and it meant workshop and artist studio provision, according to the website. So, okay. And she said, "I'm not trying to be a smarty pants. Inquiring minds need to know."
Oh, sure.
That sounds like something I would say.
You'd think I'd know. You'd think I'd have known that by now, after all this time.
Now, she also, prior to that, had said that she said, "Congratulations for being on Canadian Landscape Artist of the Year."
Oh, thank you.
She had a question. Do you think these residencies were a big benefit for being selected for the show?
No. When I had my interview with them, it wasn't mentioned. I think that in the Landscape Artist of the Year Canada, they were looking for 2 things. They're looking for somebody who was relatively competent at their craft, and they wanted somebody who was a character, and I use that in inverted commas. So they wanted larger-than-life personalities who would make entertaining viewing, and I think that was in large part why they chose me. I mean, I'm not a plein air expert by any stretch. I mean, I can knock out a painting in a few hours if I need to, but I can, I can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Well, that's always helpful. And I enjoyed the episode you were in. I watched it. So congratulations on that. I had some questions here that I wanted to ask. So after experiencing both group and solo exhibitions, do you have a personal preference? Or not, sorry, residency,
group,
not exhibitions. Group and solo residencies.
I think a group residency is easier to do because you are not on your own. Okay. I've done a lot of self-directed life as a geologist. And so for myself, a self-directed residency was very much like a self-directed field work for geology. You go in, you have 2 weeks to a month to take samples, make observations and come back. And then that gives you, a good year's worth of work to do. I think a lot of people who go on solo residencies struggle to motivate themselves while they're there. And they don't do a lot while they're there. So a large part of it is to decide in advance what you're going to do while you're there. Otherwise, it's easy to get there and kind of be overwhelmed by the landscape, the situation. It's warm and sunny. So you have to have a good amount of self-discipline. If you're part of a group residence, you're all sort of out doing other things. In the art in the park, everybody was going out walking every day. So you're part of that. And so everybody sits down and they do their plein air. In the case of a solo residence, you have to have the self-discipline to get up every day and go and do that thing. Just like in the studio, you get up every day and you go to the studio and you do your work.
Okay. So was there, you were talking about some of the pros and cons of each. Each one was a completely different experience. Do you have a favorite from the 3 that you did, or just things you liked about all?
They were all fantastic in their own way, and the Shetland one was the first one that I'd done, and it was a part of Scotland that I'd always wanted to visit. So it's got a special place for me. But the Glacier one was an incredible opportunity to see a part of the world that people generally go through on their own. And then the Stegner House, it's a part of Canada that very few people get to see. It's very remote and separate from the rest of Canada. But because it's by the border, it's seen a huge amount of Canadian history. Why else would you go there except, why else would you spend a block of time there except for an art or a writer's residency? So one of the great things about an art residence versus a vacation or passing through is that when you go there and you spend a day, you take all the usual photographs that everybody else does of all the usual tourist things. If you spend a couple of weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, you see past them and you start to respond to the environment in your own way, to see the stories behind the location where you are, rather than just the surface immediate things, and so and you start to respond to the colors, to the landscape, and you see the same place at multiple different times a day. So you get to appreciate different aspects of the landscape and when the best time to capture a particular subject that you're looking for. So it's really not like going on vacation for a couple of days. It's a completely different experience. So what was your question again? So the Shetland one, probably, because it was the first. but they're all incredible. You know, I'd recommend all of them to everybody.
Okay. Valerie Simons asked, is there another residency you're considering in your future?
I don't have any. I don't have any on the horizon at the moment. But maybe in an ideal world, I'd love to go and do one in Berlin, you know, or Mexico City or something. That would be fun. I'd like to do one in a city. I mean, I do a lot of urban lives, but all the residencies I've had have been in wilderness or rural areas. So yeah, that'd be nice, but they're not easy to come by. Most of the art residencies are in pretty remote areas, you know, so.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Now, Marlene Davey asked, do you apply for a residency or are you invited?
You apply. So most of the time there will be an open call, and the open calls are posted on various websites such as Res Artis and artist residencies abroad, that kind of thing. But basically you Google artist residencies or artist residencies open call, and then you'll see, you know, they'll come up, and then you just start applying. And just depending on what you apply for, you might be lucky or you might not. So for example, the US Park Service has artist residencies in all the national parks. So Yosemite, Death Valley, Denali, Yellowstone, Grand Teton, but there are literally hundreds of applications for each space for these. So, you know, there's all different types. Your chance of success is not that high. You know, for some applications, there can be 10 or 100 applicants for every one. So I've been relatively lucky in getting mine. In the case of the Shetland one, I emailed them on spec the day after they'd had a cancellation. And so they were scrambling to fill it. And as I understand it, they've recently had a cancellation. So they're looking for applicants at the moment. So, you know, it's a real luck of the draw. In the case of the Saskatchewan one, they had 23 applicants that year, and so they allocated 2 weeks to most of the applicants, and then, you know, maybe 1 or 2 months. So
okay.
that was a pretty good success rate.
Carol Ramond asks if there are any residencies that you would recommend here in BC. Well, the Art in the Park one is in BC. That's a good one. There's a very attractive looking one at Sloyd Tulla in the inner inside passage. There's one run by Parks Canada in Guayhanas, which is very attractive looking. I know some artists who've been to that, like Charlie Easton, who hold it in very high regard. Elsewhere in BC, there's one in Richmond, the Branscombe House residence, which is accepting applications. I think it's in DS Slough, and they give you the house, so you can go and live in South Richmond. The Kaitani in Vernon, which you can do. Mackey House, which is just outside Vernon. A good friend of mine, Anne Wilsey, has done that one, and you get the whole of Mackey House to yourself for a month. You know, where else? Those are the main ones. Oh, and there's Island Arts in Wells, and they have a residence program. I've thought about applying to that one.
You know, the Cariboo is a very enigmatic part of the world, and it would be interesting to spend some time there. So that's most of the ones I know there.
Oh, Caro says thank you for the recommendations. So,
Thank you
well,
for that question.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate all the detail you went to and to explain everything and to make it enjoyable for us to listen to. So that's very much appreciated.
You're very welcome. And if anybody has questions after the fact that it occurs to them, they're welcome to either email you or email me directly, and I'm happy to follow up offline.
Well, as well, I think your email contact is on your artist profile on our artist directory page. And they can always see, check out from your last show, your last solo show here, plus your artwork from the Art in the Park when it was here, or on your digital gallery. They can scroll through that as well. So
sure thing. And you know, and I'm based out of Portside Studios in East Vancouver. So if once the COVID has passed, if you want to come see the work in the studio, you're welcome to, or come by during the Eastside Culture Call in November.
And we're hoping that things have relaxed and that we can all maybe do that in a bit of a distanced way, but you know, still do the Eastside Culture Crawl. I would miss it. So you're still, even during this time, you've been fortunate in still being able to go to your studio.
It's been a challenge for sure. I've had a number of projects and exhibitions cancelled, but I've been very lucky in being able to go into the studio as usual. Now, of course, we've had to institute social distancing measures and a schedule and cleaning protocols to so that we're working in a safe environment. But I've been very lucky to be able to continue working on material for exhibitions to come later in the year.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jeff. And I know we'll be seeing you in the near future when everything straightens out again. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone that came this evening. Sorry, I'm just going to.
Yeah, thanks very much, everybody.
Yes. I just wanted to say thank you very much to everyone who came to the artist sessions this evening. And I hope you'll have a chance to go and check the various digital galleries on the artist sessions page and the artist profiles on our artist directory. And that is one of the benefits of being a member at the Port Moody Arts Centre. You can purchase a $25 membership and you get to have an artist profile and also be a member at the Art Centre and vote at our AGM, those types of things. Anyway, next week on the artist sessions, we have a really another very special event, and we are launching a new writers group hosted by Pomo Arts, and it is called Pomo Writes. So we'll be excited to welcome Eric D'Souza, who is the organizer, and we will hope you'll be able to join us, meet some writers, and be introduced to our new Pomo Writes group. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. Good night.
Bye.